Personally, I wanted to suggest that we do like animation type thing for me, where it's just my face and then it's like the cutoff, and it's just like the bottom part just moving along when I'm talking.
That would be hilarious.
That would be
if
hilarious.
it wasn't a bunch of work.
So if you look back at this and realize that you don't enjoy your appearance, we can figure something out.
That's bullshit. You did not give me that option.
Hello there, and welcome to Films and Fika podcast. This is the podcast where we get our caffeine fix by drinking liters upon liters upon liters of coffee. And of course, we talk about movies as well. That's an important detail. And today's movie is the sci-fi romance bittersweet film Her by one of our old favorites, actually, on this poddy pod. It's by Spike Jonze. So, joining me today, of course, we have Mao as always, but of course, a very, very, very special guest, Alexis. Welcome to the podcast, Alexis. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine.
And thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm not good at this.
No worries. I'm fairly okay. I was tired half an hour ago, but then I had my first cup of coffee, so this is my second, and I think it's going to be a swell episode.
Swell is such a specific word.
Swell. I've been using it more and more recently. It's cool.
I personally just finished my cup of peppermint tea while we're just chatting amongst us, and now I'm just drinking water.
Gotta stay hydrated. Gotta stay hydrated. I actually downloaded one of those stupid... I mean, I don't necessarily subscribe to health apps per se. Like, counting calories to me is the last thing that I would ever want to do. But just as an experiment to kind of like check in on what my water intake is, I downloaded one of those drink 2 liters a day apps, and you have to click on the little... I mean, you have different sizes of cups of water, and on an average, I drink like more or less 2 liters of water, which was kind of expected, but it was fun as an experiment just to do for a week.
Personally, the way I learned that I drink way too much water is I drink water out of these 1 liter containers, and I drink on average 4 to 6 of these a day. So
why?
I found out I drink way too much water.
Why?
I don't know. It's
Is it like a bad habit? Because what I usually do is that I have a like half a liter bottle on my table, and I fill up my cup as I go about it. But I can see how you continuously sip.
Yes, it's partially that, but also like I've been trying to cut down how much I smoke. I've been trying to cut down how much I've been trying to cut down like everything that's fun to do.
All at once?
I'm just substituting for water. Yeah, that's not good.
How are you doing?
Not smart. I've only had 1 cigarette today, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been awake since 9 something. I'm feeling okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. Knowing how much you smoked before.
Yeah. Well, it depends,
we used to
actually,
smoke a lot.
Depends which period of time we're talking about, because there was a period of time where I smoked almost 2 packs a day.
Oh.
So, like, compared to that, yes, I'm not even smoking anymore. I wouldn't even qualify as a smoker. But lately, I have been able to cut it down a fair amount to the point where 1 pack will last me over a week.
That's nice.
Which is, like, about 2 cigarettes a day.
Give
like
or take,
3
yeah.
cigarettes a day, yeah. So, 1 cigarette so far doesn't feel like an accomplishment because it's also my normal. But I'm out of cigarettes, and I'm trying not to go outside and buy more cigarettes.
So do you have a set rule that you don't even smoke at parties, or are you allowing yourself that one?
Well, given
That's the hard one.
Given the quarantine,
Of
I
course.
haven't had to think about that. My most socializing thing is the fact that I live with my girlfriend. Other than that, it's when a friend of ours, actually, we all know him, Alejandro, he came by to pick up a knife that I was giving away. That's it. That's all the socializing I've done. Yeah. So I don't have to think about like, oh, am I allowed to smoke when I go to parties, or am I allowed to smoke in the presence of other people who smoke? It just
That's the hard one, though. Like, realistically speaking, I'm on the same boat as you, right? Like, I pulled back on my smoking, right? Because we did smoke a lot. It was insane. But whenever I'm in a party, man, and I like those drinks start hitting, I'm just like, I don't know. It's a different scenario.
I found myself in a couple of Zoom calls where there was a lot of alcohol consumption going with it. And in those cases, yes, I did want to start drinking more because it's a habit of like smoking when you're drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it matters whether or not there's people around. It's mostly like a personal thing. Like if you're consuming alcohol, you want to drink. If you're consuming alcohol, you want to smoke. Sorry. So, like this past week, I did a thing where I was rewatching the entire MCU in chronological order.
Nice.
I'm still not done.
Wait,
I just started Ant-Man and the Wasp this morning.
Oh.
And there's like that one, and then Endgame, and then Far From Home. No. Yeah, Far From Home.
So,
and then I'm done.
So, why?
So...
Because it's not
Cecilia,
a great... I mean, it's...
I'm with you there. There's only like a handful of movies that I really wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And the rest of them I just kind of watch because they're there.
Yeah.
Like it's
fillers.
Like she came to me being like, "Oh, let's do this." I'm like, "Sure, okay, fine, let's do that." And then after we started, like I have this mental thing where I can't stop. Like if I start something, I want to see it to the end.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stop myself from continuing the whole thing, and I was like, "Okay, we're stuck with this. Let's just keep on going. Let's try to get this over with."
Well, I mean,
we did it over a month.
Yeah, and that was tough.
That was a long month. And here's the thing, right? Like I like the Marvel movies, but yeah, no, if you're trying to just like chug along and like binge watch,
or like I'm definitely part of the superhero exhaustion, if you want to call it that. So it's going to be interesting now to see where Marvel is continuing. They're definitely slowing down their releases. I'm excited to see what they do and if they're able to get me that is very tired of superhero films currently actually excited for the next Avengers film or whatever the fuck it might be.
Well, it's an interesting
that is actually,
yeah. It's the same with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're both franchises that have reached the point that they were like aiming to get to.
I guess they're both Disney.
But now it's over. Oh, 100%. Well, it's the thing, right? Like, realistically speaking, how much is this problem that we're facing the fact that there are just a little, like, there's a few key players within the studio industry, right? And, like, realistically, most of the things that we'll see or that are the big, like, release dates, they're all Disney movies or Disney affiliate.
Yeah. Which is also kind of sad.
It's sad. And realistically, what scares me more than, lack of creativity or the fact that a lot of these movies are franchises is that because Disney has such a public image and such a family-friendly image, that's the part that scares me, that filmmakers won't be able to explore certain topics or explore certain sides of the human condition because of this limitation that Disney has being a family-friendly company, Yeah. Hopefully, they would be able to release these movies under like the Fox umbrella of it all.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's really what scares me about it.
I mean, you could make the argument that it's a bigger challenge as a filmmaker, but I mean, look what they did on Disney Plus with, I think it was Splash. Is that the title of the film?
Yeah, that was it.
Do you see that one, Alexis?
I have not, no.
There's this old Tom Hanks mermaid film, apparently, that no one had heard of until it got put on Disney Plus. And there's this scene where you can see, like the original sequence, there's a little hint of a bum when she is running away from Tom Hanks into the sea and disappears. In the Disney Plus version, it's the shittiest, crappiest, just like copy and paste hair that they put on top of her bum. And it looks like a little
She has a hairy ass.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like. It looks like she has a hairy ass because it's so weird. And it's, but yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
From the beginning, it was family friendly, I would say. But now they had to take it to the next level. And the VFX artist obviously didn't care enough or didn't have enough time. So, yeah.
Also, I feel like the idea of family friendly content can be a very tricky one because like the tiniest bit of sexual content all of a sudden is not okay. But if you have someone's head being blown up, that's perfectly fine.
Well,
If
because
you
that's
have like a monster with a hole in it, that's perfectly fine. But the moment you see like the crack of the ass or like a little bit too much cleavage, all of a sudden it's not okay. Or like the moment you see a man's pelvic area, like it just, there's so many weird. Oh, just sorry. Yeah.
well, and I mean, especially for you guys, right? Like as Europeans, that's insane. Like the whole like stigma that exists around nudity over in the US and how,
because we
you
say
know, like
dicks
you said,
every
like,
day. People walk around naked here all the time. I mean, look at Eurotrip. Eurotrip portrays it perfectly. I was being ironic for the record.
Okay. Because there are parts of it that are accurate, but like there are other parts where are completely inaccurate. So. But yeah, like something that actually really weirded me out here. I went to a spa, and there was absolutely no nudity. Like there was a rule: you're not allowed to be naked. I'm like,
Not even
sorry,
under
is
the
this not a spa? Like, no, you have to wear swim trunks at all times. You're not allowed to take them off. I was like, I understand if you want me to have a towel around my waist, and like if a child walks into me, that don't like accidentally, you know. But like, I don't see the point in like me not being naked. We're all adults here. We've all seen a penis before. It's not like they're seeing something new.
Not even in the sauna?
No.
Like there was absolutely no nudity. It was so, because in Europe where I grew up in Luxembourg, we don't have like a 100% like nude sauna because like some people are more like reserved than other people. So there's like separate rooms, and one is like an all nude sauna, another one is like take your pick, whatever you want, and a third one is only clothed.
That's next
So
level.
you have your options. Like you have the option of going somewhere where you're not going to see anyone naked. No one's going to see you naked. You have the option of going somewhere where like, you don't know, you're just rolling the dice. Maybe you'll see someone, maybe they'll see you.
Yeah.
But then you also have the option of going somewhere where everyone's naked, everyone's free. And like here, you don't even get that option. You just have to be clothed.
Dude, like I love going to the sauna because you have the best conversation. Just random old guys with their stuff hanging out, sitting right there in the sauna. You can just chill for like 10 minutes. You're going to talk about everything that is in this world. I love those kind of conversations with random old guys.
I've never had a conversation with a random old guy the way I'm imagining it, because like I'm imagining like an 85-year-old.
Yeah.
It's all wrinkles, balls are down to the floor kind
they
of
don't
thing.
care at all.
I mean, you're too old to care at that point, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, realistically speaking, you've lived through some shit. You can be naked if you want to, you know? Like, that's it.
But like I think like my oldest conversation I've had was like a 50-something-year-old who gave me tips on how to advance in life and how to get further in life and stuff like that, which was a very deep conversation to have in a sauna when you're sweating and panting, like, yeah, I agree with you. It's really nice to know how to proceed. And it's not one of those things you want to do.
So I think we've been going on a little bit too long on that conversation. So let's head over to the recommendation of the week, shall we? I'm quite interested because I was actually gonna bring it up, but I heard that Mao, you have an interesting recommendation of the week. What is it?
I do. So my recommendation of the week is a Netflix show that came out some point in May. I think it was the first week of May or something. And it's created by Ryan Murphy, who did Glee and who also created American Horror Story, among other. I think he also created like American Crime Story.
He's been
with
producing a lot of
O.J. Simpson. But the point is, this is his new TV show. It's out on Netflix. All the episodes are out, and it's supposed to be a reimagining of the golden age era of Hollywood, or what would have happened if the changes that are happening nowadays within the industry with the whole Me Too movement and LGBTQ representation had happened, back in the day.
What is it called?
And I thought it's called Hollywood. Thank you.
I got you, bro.
It's called Hollywood, which, as far as titles go, I really don't think it's the strongest one, but we'll go with it. And I have heard that a lot of people have a problem with the show itself. I'm gonna be completely honest. I really enjoy the show. That's why it's my recommendation. I think, just as we have spoken about before, Algot, yes, there's a place for, sad, heavy, depressing movies and weird and all of the stuff. But, I think lately it's hard to run into a movie or a TV show that is okay with not being sad and depressing and dark and twisted and all this other stuff. And, I understand that some people have issues with how certain topics were handled.
Okay.
It's not, stuff is never perfect. You can't satisfy everyone. But, because we all are in quarantine, this was nice. It was uplifting. This, and people who have listened to the podcast enough know that I love golden age Hollywood. I think it's so appealing, even though there was a lot of fucked up shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about it. It's like Paris in the 20s. There's something about it,
But
sure,
if I understand,
hygiene wasn't the best.
if
but
I understand it correctly, that's kind of what the show is touching upon, though. No.
Yeah, it's trying to. So there's there's a couple of African American actors and writers, or like characters within the story that realistically wouldn't have been given the time of day outside a specific niche within the industry. And the whole point of the series is that they get a shot. They get a shot to make a movie that is not for African Americans, and the actress gets a shot at not playing a slave or the housemaid or something. And I think that's cool. And I think that the point of the show is to tell us, we could do it. If we wanted to, people could do it, and I don't know, is it corny and maybe a little bit naive? Sure. Could it have been handled better? Some parts, for sure, especially the whole like sexual abuse stuff. But
okay.
People don't take life so seriously. It's a show. If you like it, enjoy it. I think it's a fun time.
I don't know. I've never heard of this show before. However, literally, over the span of 24 hours, I got it recommended twice by two different people. But since I'm not a show watcher, I'm gonna watch a trailer, maybe the first episode, and decide then if I'm gonna finish it or not. I'm still working on Watchmen, mind you. I'm just a slow show watcher, but we'll see. It sounds interesting nonetheless.
Personally, I've had it on my Netflix list for a while. I do want to get into it, but I didn't feel like I was in the right mind space to get into it yet. Because I feel like you also need to be not in a specific mind space, just in a less sad and depressed and I've been stuck inside my apartment for the past 2 months mind space.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I feel like it's a little bit sad that it's so hard for people to be okay or believe in a happy ending. How miserable are we as a human species that seeing someone in a movie have a happy ending drive us mad? It drives people mad. And why? What's the problem? I'm getting triggered, and I don't need to be triggered in this show. I'm just saying, it's enjoyable. And also, I'm a sucker for movies that have to do with the industry or where the characters work within the industry. I think it's awesome because I'm a sucker for it. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Okay. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that currently I haven't been in a mood to watch something new necessarily, like in a way.
I get that.
It's like I want to watch the same old shit like that just I know is going to make me feel like 10% better for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, like a comfort that comes from it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
The same thing that you would get as a child when your parent rereads you a story that they've already read you. It's like, it's just that comfort of knowing there's no surprises. There's nothing that's going to surprise you. Just, it is what it is. It's going to get you to sleep. And that's what you need right now.
What's your recommendation, Algan?
Well, it's nothing new, but it's the first time that I saw this movie. And it is Wes Anderson, which both me and Mao are a big fan of. I know for sure. I would assume that you are not as big of a fan of Wes, are you, Alexis? Yeah. Either way,
I want to seem worldly and cultured, but no.
It's fine.
Earlier this week, I saw Bottle Rocket by Wes Anderson. I think it's his first featurette or whatever. But nonetheless, it's great. It doesn't necessarily have this all Anderson cool, quirky camera movements, and there's definitely room for change within his style especially, but the characters are very Wes, and I feel like it's one of my top Wes Anderson films.
Nice.
Definitely. Okay. It really hits well with me, Bottle Rocket, and yeah. Short and sweet, Bottle Rocket.
That's usually a risk. Like going into a filmmaker that you like and watching their first movie. It's not always easy because of what you just said. Like characters, writing, that can always be there because that's something that you work on without, having actors or crew or everything else. But for you to define your vision and become like a director, you need to direct shit.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of the things that you love from Hotel Budapest or like Mr. Fox or all of these other very Anderson movies, it's not going to necessarily be there because he hadn't gotten to that point. But I will check it out. I haven't checked it out because of that reason, but if you liked it, I'll give it a shot.
After seeing this film, I'm down. I want to watch all of the other Anderson films that I haven't yet seen and rewatch a lot of them too. Like I want to rewatch Aquatic. I feel like that one would be a good rewatch. Life of the Aquatic.
Life Aquatic.
Life Aquatic? Life of the
It's
Aquatic?
Life Aquatic, right?
I don't know.
Life Aquatic, I think.
Nah. Alexis, what have you seen recently?
So, okay, originally I was going to recommend The Great, which stars Elle Fanning and Nicholas Holst. I don't remember if there's an S in his last name.
Holt. No S.
Okay, there you go. But actually, because of what you mentioned about Hollywood, I would recommend #BlackAF,
Okay.
which is a Netflix series. Personally, I loved it. And I loved it because of something that I think I've discussed with either both of you or just Mao, which is that sometimes certain shows get praise just for having, they get praise as being the best movie just for having a tiny bit done to them. So, for example, Black Panther getting praise as being like an amazing movie. It's not that great of a movie. Its accomplishment is that it has
an all African American.
Yeah,
cast.
Like they're staying true to that, which is great, and I'm not against that. But it's not a great movie. Like a lot of the CGI falls through. There are some plot holes. Like there's a lot of issues with the movie. So it should get praise for what it did well, but it should not get praise for what it didn't. Yeah. So Black AF is basically approaching that in a way. The writer and lead is actually the writer of Blackish. And a couple of other shows. I can't remember his. I can actually look it up.
Yeah, but here's like in general, because of what you just said, you're right. And it's the same thing with like queer cinema or Asian cinema
Mm.
in terms of representation. It's like, yes, we should acknowledge that this is a huge step forward. Sad that it's taken this long, but sure,
Yeah.
it's now being done. But there should be more quality in it. And I feel as the industry evolves, we will get more shows, we will get more movies with representation, and therefore be able to get like great masterpieces of a movie. You know, because if we compare it, like we've had movies about a white dude who saves everyone a whole bunch of times. So then,
Yeah.
of course, there's the good quality of them and there's bad quality in them. So I feel it's just a time thing. It's a sad thing, but I think it's
Yeah,
just a
so-
time thing.
Which is why actually I really appreciated the show, because it's like a predominantly black cast.
Mhm.
It's all about being black in the US, and a part of it is being successfully and black in the US versus being unsuccessfully black in the US, and how you're perceived. And there's all sorts of things that are being approached. I think in the first episode, a little spoiler, the writer of Modern Family meets Kenya Barris, or Kenya, whatever his last name is. I can't pronounce it properly. And they're talking about their cars. Kenya having a high-end hybrid versus the writer of Modern Family, whose name I can't even remember, who has Prius, which is like the go-to in LA. I've been told. I don't know from personal
it is.
experience.
It's
So-
ridiculous. It is.
So basically, the writer of Modern Family is supposed to be taking like a tiny stab at Kenya, and Kenya's like, "Yeah, no, this is a fucking hybrid. Like, chill. I'm still all for the environment. I'm just doing it in class." Like, he doesn't, not in those words, just to clarify that, but it has that approach of like acknowledging that black people have a different past versus white people, especially
Yeah.
in the US. It's all of
Yeah.
it is predominantly about the US, because, and another thing that keeps coming up all the time is about slavery and how that formed black culture today, which like personally I didn't know. It was actually a great like history lesson, because I
Mhm.
haven't lived in the US. I've never really cared about the US to that extent. So like it was actually very informative the way they did it. And just, I don't know. I haven't really read many reviews, but like the couple reviews I read, they seem to praise it for how accurate it is.
Okay.
So
It's
That's nice.
it's simply something that you
Really cool.
can't talk enough about.
yeah. Like as I'm talking about it, I'm getting like more and more things that I want to talk about. So I'm just gonna stop myself
Right.
here and be like,
So
just
really
watch
cool.
the show Black AF.
should we just go into the movie of the week? Her.
Yeah, for sure we can get into it.
Her.
Yes.
So, this week we all watched Her.
Mm.
It's a 2013 movie. It's directed and written by Spike Jonze. And, I think we should be transparent about this, right? I love this film. I adore it with a passion. And I've recommended it to Aga, I don't even know how many times.
Ah.
So that's, me being transparent. I probably don't have a lot of negative things about the movie. I'm excited to hear Alga's side of it.
Mhm. Because
But,
naturally, this was my first time seeing the film. It's been on my watch list for forever, Mao especially, but a lot of people have recommended it to me. But yeah, it was my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm just gonna say that personally, I don't take movie recommendations from anyone. Like Mao is one of the few people that when he recommends something to me, I will watch it at some point. Not guaranteed that I'll watch it within like a week, but like I'll watch it at some point. Algood, I think he recommended one movie to me and I wasn't happy with it. And like, sorry, but like you lost that ability to recommend movies to me right now.
Duly noted.
Um,
I take no offense whatsoever.
And like there's really no one else that can recommend a movie to me that I'll be like, you know what? Because you recommended it, I'll watch it. It's only Mao that recommends movies.
Hmm.
So he recommended to me that I watch this movie like 2 years ago or so. Like
It's
a
been
year
a
and a
long
half ago.
time.
Yeah. And then I was like, I don't know. But, and then eventually I watched it and like, I love this movie. This, Roma, and I'm blanking on my third favorite movie. Those are my top three, like top three. Like they're constantly changing between them three movies as which is my top favorite movie. Just I love this movie.
Alrighty. So with that said, let me give you a synopsis, and then Algat can give us his spoiler-free thoughts about this movie, and then we'll get into it. So basically, Her is a story of Theodore, who lives in a not so distant future, and he's a writer, and he develops an unlikely romantic relationship with an operating system. So it is what some people say is a sci-fi, and I think, spoiler-free thoughts. Go watch it. I think it's awesome. I feel this is the type of movie that I would recommend to someone, and that's why I don't recommend movies to a lot of people, like I've said before, because they're very specific. There's a very specific type of person who will like this movie. Agad, what did you think about it?
I feel the way that Alexis put it, that he actually listens to your recommendations and not mine, puts it in a good way. It makes a lot of sense, actually, because I'm sorry, but I wasn't too impressed with this film. I think I possibly have gotten my hopes up because I've heard a lot of good things about it. Granted, those things have probably been from film students. And as we all know, film students are a unique breed of person.
Pretentious. You can say it. We're pretentious.
But I wouldn't say this is a pretentious film. Of course, it's Spike Jonze, so you kind of know it's going to be a weird-ish film. It's not as weird as Malkovich, though. It's very comprehensible within its concept, I would say. But it's a cool film. But I would say it's not necessarily hit or miss. I don't know. I'm at a loss of words, I find.
Did you feel it was underwhelming, maybe? Like, was
Possibly.
It that you build this thing up, and because it didn't reach that,
I think it might be that. But then again, I've been waiting to see it for quite some time, so I don't think I had hyped it up necessarily. It just didn't necessarily hit the notes that I would like a movie to hit. Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question that I think is very important for this specific movie. When you watched the movie, were you like watching it on your laptop in bed, or were you watching it on the TV with like three other people next to you? What was the setting that you were watching it?
I was always aware that it's a film better watched alone, 100%. I did watch it in my bed on my laptop, yes.
Okay, that was the only thing I could think of that might have ruined the experience, because personally I watched this film 4 or 5 times in the past year or so. Yeah, more or less year. And only twice did I watch it alone. And those were the times that I truly enjoyed it, because I felt free of judgment to cry whenever I wanted to.
I like it.
The other 3 times I was with people, and I was like, okay, no tears now. No tears.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
Basically, it's a film about some pretty bittersweet take on romance, and it kind of touches on the question what romance and relationships are, or would be, or could be, or is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting stuff within the movie that I think we're gonna be able to touch upon once we get into the spoiler aspect of this movie. I think there's some fun facts that we can get out of the way. A lot of people call this movie a companion piece to Lost in Translation by Sofia Coppola.
Oh.
Because
really,
Sofia Coppola and Spike Jonze were married. They dated for 11 years, and then they were married for 4 years, and then they got divorced. And she made Lost in Translation, and there's a lot of parallels. And then 10 years later, he comes back and makes Her. So a lot of people say and theorize that we're basically getting the two sides of how they dealt with their relationship. Sophia's more with their actual relationship, and Spike Jonze is more like how he came to terms about how he failed within the relationship and the 10 years of perspective that he got. So I think that's cool.
Interesting.
I love when that
Yeah.
like I think that's really cool. Like, you know. And there's other parallels. Obviously, Scarlett Johansson is in both of them, who I think is amazing. And they have the same production designer, which also makes sense because they both have a similar but not exact. And I think the differences come, you know, from Spike dealing with the fact that he's now okay with a divorce, and Sophia, you know, with all of the loneliness that she felt within the relationship.
I guess
Let's
it
get
kind
into
of
the spoilers.
have a similar color palette, maybe, even though her is very pastel-like. It plays with colors, at least. Both of them do in
Yeah.
a unique way.
Yeah, I feel like what's interesting is, you know, Tokyo, well, like Lost in Translation is very cold in its palette,
Mhm.
and her is actively trying to be warm. Washed out, but still warm. And I think that's really interesting. But let me just really quickly tell people who is in this movie, because I skipped that part because I'm excited about this conversation. The movie stars Joaquin Phoenix
Woo!
in the main role. We all love him here.
Yes.
I really think he's fucking amazing. Scarlett Johansson plays the operating system, so it's only her voice that we
Oh.
hear.
If I may say something just real quick, I feel
Yeah.
like Scarlett Johansson, because she's so beautiful, it's actually stopping people from noticing how great of an actress she is.
I agree 100%.
Like, there's so many people are like, oh my gosh, she's so hot. I'm like, yes, she is. But have you seen her act? Like, have you heard her voice in her? Like, it just... Okay, sorry. Yeah, do go on.
I agree. No, please keep going. She's amazing. Amy Adams is also in this film, along with Olivia Wilde and Rooney Mara. Chris Pratt also makes certain appearances, and he's hilarious because this is pre Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's a nice little take.
He looks
with
great,
that-
though.
Oh yeah. He might have. Wait, is this pre? Guardians of the Galaxy?
2013.
When did Guardians of the Galaxy come out?
I'm pretty sure it was after that.
I think it's after.
2014.
Oh, so he might have like been getting in shape or something, you know, like he was getting there. Anyways, he's fun. This is your official spoiler alert. We're gonna get into it, and Alka, tell us what you liked about it. Let's
What I
get the
liked
nice out
about
there.
it? Well, there is
Actually, can we start the other way? Because once we get in the nice, me and you, we're gonna be talking nonstop. So
Yeah,
should we start
That's
from the
fair. You
negative?
you think so?
That's fair. Sure.
Uh,
Okay. Yeah. You're right. Let's go. Okay, Alka, trash this movie.
Well, I didn't.
You destroyed. We built it up.
I didn't dislike it by any means. What didn't I like about it? It's kind of hard to pinpoint. It is because I think it's. Hey, Phoenix is amazing. The acting is great. The writing is stellar. One point that I personally am not a huge fan of, and I mean, I understand that you two are, but I didn't necessarily see the what do you call it? I didn't see the need for the language. I guess that they were trying to create some sort of realism of like how people talk, but at times I felt like it was just very raunchy. The humor itself, sure, I laughed, but it's not my type of humor necessarily. But
You mean the sexual tones that are all over
the place, and they swear all the time, and I felt like it's a bit alienating. I guess it's taking place in the future, but it's very raunchy altogether.
Okay, all right. You know, I think you
I never even
might be
noticed that.
right.
I personally
Like,
never even noticed that. I just like I enjoyed it so much that I didn't even notice that was happening.
I watched it with my brother, and there were parts where he definitely turned and looked at me, and he was like, "What is?" You know, like it's true. There's a definite, and I think that's where the Spike Jonze aspect comes into it.
Yeah,
Like he
100%.
has a specific, tone.
Mhm.
And this is the first time that he writes alone. So like
Okay.
being John Malkovich, he wrote with someone else. Adaptation, he wrote with someone else. This was the first time that he wrote and directed.
Interesting.
Probably because of how personal the movie is for him.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and what I just noticed. We usually have a format for this, and we're like throwing that out the window, and we're gonna have another Shark Boy and Lava Girl situation in our hands. So let's try and go along with the movie, and we can talk about what like jumps out at us. The movie starts with Theodore, and he works at a company that hand writes letters.
It's a cool
To
touch,
strangers.
actually. I like that.
Actually, I personally found that a very interesting take on the number of people that are in high up positions that get their assistants to do all the romantic efforts in the relationship. So like the CEO that doesn't call his wife to say like, "Oh honey, I miss you," and tells the assistant, "Oh, text her, I miss her." Or like when they don't want to go out and buy a gift, they're like, "Yeah, you assistant, go do that for me." And I feel like it's a take on that and how in the future we might end up relying on other people to do all of the romantic efforts in the relationship rather than doing it ourselves.
Basically, we see Theodore along with his colleagues talking to this, desktop computer, and as he's talking, the computer itself is voice to text writing this letter to some random stranger that he has been writing a lot of letters to, which essentially makes them not strangers anymore, I guess. I mean, I guess I get that it's taking place in the future, but to me, it's almost like an alternate reality. Are we sure that it's in the future necessarily?
That's a really cool take that you just did, because I feel you're right in a lot of ways. I think what the movie's trying to do is not put a date on when it's happening or like when it's going to happen. And I think the production design comes into play with it too, because all the technology and all of
And the fashion.
all of their clothes.
All of it has like a 70s vibe, but like not 70s isn't like actually taken out of the 70s. It's just like a futuristic, hypothetical 70s of what it could have been.
Yeah, it's a weird mix. It's a weird mix. It's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of the aesthetic that The Incredibles has, the Pixar movie.
Less
where it's
smooth,
like,
but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Like The Incredibles has this like 1950s look to it, but there's also high tech within it. It's a weird mix, and that's kind of what it reminded me about. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is kind of like an alternate reality.
I kind of felt that way seeing it. To me, it wasn't clear that it's directly the future to me. Then again, we see a lot of correlations. We have this little, what do you want to call it? This little gadget, smartphone. I mean, that's what it would be. There's a smartphone with a headpiece connected to it. And on this smartphone, you have an OS. And later in the film, Theodore gets advertised this new OS that's a completely... do they advertise it as an algorithm completely? Like, it's a new...
Oh, they say it's like the first artificial intelligence operating
AI.
system.
Right.
Yeah.
So he downloads it or buys it, and it's Scarlett Johansson with her sexy voice. And
well, actually, that's just mere chance. It's not everyone who gets to speak to Scarlett Johansson. Every person that signs up gets a different operating system. So every person has a different friend, if you will, or like a different computer.
Well, that's the thing.
Like,
and I
they
think
all have the same basis, but like everything past the basis is its own.
And that's the point of it, right? That this is not a thing that you buy and is subservient to you necessarily. Like, or actually, that's the point. It's your assistant, and whether or not you become friends, and in this case, develop a romantic relationship with it, is more depending on you and your interactions with it, I guess.
Well, I mean, I guess one scene that could explain my beef with the film at the beginning there would be the scene when he actually sits down, installs the OS, and there comes what's her name? I completely blanked out. That blonde chick. The hot one?
ScarJo?
ScarJo? What's that?
Scarlett Johansson?
ScarJo. That's new to me. Scarlett Johansson pops up, and I think it's based on a few questions. So, to my understanding, the OS is basing its not necessarily personality, but its goal or something like that is based.
Basic qualities.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty clear later when Amy Adams gets her own OS, where it's fulfilling her needs based on the first questions that the OS asks you. It knows
Actually,
that Theodore needs some sort of partner in this sense. No.
Actually, Amy doesn't get her own OS. She uses Charles's, like her husband or ex-husband.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's when Amy starts telling Theodore about her AI and how it was her husband's. That's when they get into this whole discussion of how not because it's your AI doesn't mean that you're gonna be friends. Because she talks about how someone in her office is hitting on their OS and the OS is like not having it, and how some lady is hitting on someone else's OS, which is such a bizarre concept. But we all know that person who's like crossing them lines.
There's early on in the movie, there's a scene where Joaquin Phoenix Theodore is lying down on the bed, and then he puts on his earpiece and looks for females to have phone sex with.
Yeah.
I feel like that scene is it gets kind of disgusting near the end there, where it's like choking with a cat. Oh, I'm choking with the tail of the cat. But I found it really interesting that scene sort of sets up the rest of the movie, because it shows you the level of intimacy you can get to through just this tiny little earpiece. Like, you don't need a visual representation of that person. You just need that earpiece and just to like chat, and you can get everything just from verbal communication.
No, that's really good.
Which it literally sets up the entire thing, because if you didn't have that scene, how comfortable would you have been when he then has sex with an AI over the phone? I feel like it would have been much more uncomfortable for you to watch it, because you didn't have that shock in the beginning of like the disgusting version of what happens later on.
Well, because realistically, the movie is asking various questions, I think, and one of them is probably what you're talking about, right? Like how do we interact with each other? How intimate or how intimacy works within a relationship, and is it dependent on being with someone physically? And I think there's arguments for and against, mostly when we are presented with the flashbacks of Theodore's past relationship, which I think, again, are handled beautifully. They're shot in this like dreamy, hazy, warm light, which contrasts how lonely he is, right? And it's like, oh man, that sucks, because it looks like a really nice relationship, and like they had a lot of fun, like they were really tight and cute, and then it's like, and he's alone in his bed.
We only see the good parts up on his flashbacks, probably because that's the way he looks back on the relationship, and we only hear about the bad things, probably most of the times, from a third party.
Something else that I want to talk about is the fact that he portrays the validity of our relationship being possible through only verbal communication over the phone. But an important part of it is also to understand that the AI or Samantha or Scarlett Johansson is only there at his whim. Like, at any given moment, he just puts the pod in his ear and he just talks to her, which is an unrealistic expectation to have in real life. You can't just like at any given moment call someone and expect them at all times to pick up. And you see how troublesome that becomes near the end, where she's not available to talk at his whim. She starts having like her own time and like things that she wants to do outside of him. And all of a sudden you see him being like, what the hell? I thought this was our relationship, where you just at my beck and call 24/7. So
like you can see that when he freaks out about, so she sends him an email, says like, hey, I'm gonna go make this upgrade, but he doesn't see that, so she kind of disappears for a second there, and he freaks out, and that's when we discover that she's all this other stuff, and that she's having multiple conversations and realistically multiple relationships, because she's an AI, and she handles shit differently.
Like it took
But
her 0.2 of a second to read 180,000 names. Like,
Mm.
yeah, so but his reaction is, I thought you were mine.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel
Yeah.
that's the key point that this movie is trying to say. It's like, you don't own this other half of this relationship. And, you know,
yeah,
I've seen this movie many times, and I feel like what I really like about it is how I change every time that I see it, because I'm at a different part of my life.
Yeah.
yeah,
And, you know, I think this time my biggest interpretation of the movie is that it's not a love story between him and the AI. I feel it's a love story with him, with himself. That's the whole point of his character. He needs to go from where he starts in the movie, and he even says it out loud, like, I'm looking to have sex to fill this void that I have inside of me, which it probably won't, to being okay with being on his own. And a lot of people think that by the ending, he's gonna end up with Amy. I don't see it that way.
no,
I feel like they're both just like, we need a friend, and that's all that you
Yeah.
really need. Like,
Mhm.
it's about him learning how to accept and love himself. Yeah, through the AI and the interactions that they have. But it is about him being okay with himself and growing up past, I need a relationship to be happy. I need a relationship to be whole as a person, because that's not how it works.
yeah,
Interesting. We can kind of like talk about, or I find it
I
interesting.
feel like we're getting Alga to like it just a little bit more now.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. My rating that I had in my mind before hitting record might be a little bit higher. We'll see. I really like that take. I would like to segue into the Catherine relationship, like his ex, because I do believe that's the way that he. I mean, the guy has a lot of baggage. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Of course, it was a lovely relationship and all in all. Do we ever get an explanation to why they broke up necessarily?
He says
Oh.
that he ran away,
Uh-huh.
like he hides from her. And we see it happen with Olivia Wilde when they're at the restaurant, and
Uh-huh.
with Samantha as well. He has some kind of like commitment issue, but not necessarily. It's weird. He has baggage.
So yeah, he has baggage, but also I found it interesting that at the restaurant where they're signing the divorce papers, Catherine says he just wanted to stick me on Prozac or something like that, which like it's actually a very powerful drug. Like you wouldn't give that to just anyone. You need to be severely depressed, which makes me think that yes, he has flaws, but also she wasn't willing to deal with her issues to alleviate some of the pressure on him and his flaws.
That's totally fair. And Amy says something like that too. She's like,
Yeah.
her
Like-
emotions were very volatile.
Yeah.
So I like with everything, the two of them are at fault. But what were you
But
getting?
maybe
to
we
Alga?
can see a little bit of that in Theodore's relationship with Samantha, due to the toxic that he is putting on her, the toxicness, whatever.
Yeah. And you can see it in her, like how she develops that level of jealousy when he is, I don't remember who he's talking. Oh yeah, no, when he goes and signs the papers, and then she's all jealous because he's feeling a little down because like he just went through this emotional thing, and she's like, what the hell, this isn't our normal relationship. Our normal relationship is we talk 24/7.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is going on? And she freaks out over it, and that's a trait that she gets from him, not a trait that was programmed into her, because if it was, she would have had that from the first second.
True.
So it's also that like he has that level of jealousy in himself that is then reflected on her having it on him. Like it's, oh my god.
I find it interesting how we see it everything from Theo's perspective. I mean, looking into it, Catherine didn't do much wrong. It's realistically Theodore that breaks the entire thing up. I mean, he's not being a great dude about just postponing the signing of the papers, and he doesn't want to do that. So if you were to ask me, it seems like he is the bigger issue from that relationship that he had, or the marriage even that he had with Catherine. So knowing now that there's a correlation between her and Lost in Translation, I find very interesting.
Right? Yeah. Because it talks about that. It talks about how he was not there during the relationship. Realistically, we don't know it in her, but if we look at the other side in Lost in Translation, it's because of work. It's because he was more into his work than into being married, I guess. And that could be one side of it. In terms of the movie itself, I agree with you, Algat. I think he probably has a bit more of the blame in terms of that because, we hear that he wanted to stick her on Prozac, but we don't know if that's because he didn't want to help or he didn't want to go through the process of helping her with whatever she was dealing with. So maybe it was just like he thought this would be easier. Like, oh, take a drug, be happy. Because she says it. She's like, you wanted me to be bouncy and like, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing with Samantha. Like, they're happy when the relationship is supposedly like easy and not complicated. And he's all like, oh, I love that Samantha is just like happy about the world. And, she wants to
has
know
a new
everything.
take and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. But when she starts like dealing with some shit, like, am I real? Am I a person? Are my emotions like programmed? Like all of this other stuff, he tunes out. Like he's not willing to help,
I mean, the dude is very emotionally unavailable, and we get that sense of him already from the start.
Exactly.
And I don't think you see much improvement in that aspect of him throughout the film necessarily, which inevitably leads to the ending of it too. But
I feel like the point of the movie is that it's not necessarily showing you how he gets better in that sense. It's more that it shows you what it took for that shock in him to start getting better. That entire movie is that like the last straw of like being emotionally unavailable, being so depressed, putting your depression on others rather than dealing with it yourself. Taking all that negativity and blaming it on others, not being bouncy and happy, instead of being like, you know what? No, I'm the problem. I'm the one who's always negative. It's that entire movie of being like, no, enough. And this is what shocks me. And I stop doing that. And I start being a normal person with my friend, Amy. And
I hate that you're winning me over this much.
Well, because it's true, right?
Yeah.
Like when the movie ends, he's writing a letter to Catherine. He's being like, I'm sorry I fucked up. I'm not trying to get you back. I just love you. You will always be my friend, And then he goes to Amy because realistically, she just lost her AI friend. She's probably sad. She's going through a divorce, So he goes up to her and he's like, hey, I'm here for you. He's starting to change. He's starting to turn that leaf.
When you say that people are interpreting it as if they were to get together, do you mean that it's an open ending and people picture it that way, or?
Yeah. Like there's some people that, because we don't know, right? It is technically an opening. An open ending.
But I don't really see it that way. I see how you can get that or want that even as a viewer, but I don't see it. No.
Probably.
It seems that to them,
I didn't see it either.
They have a very platonic relationship.
Yeah. But, like, I understand why you feel like there's no change because the dude is mostly, like, he's very mopey. And we see that, like, from the get-go when he gets on the elevator and he's like, play a melancholy song. And it's like, is this something like when you know you're going to die? And he's like, different song. And it's like, yeah, because you don't want to be that every single day of your life, like it's about him. I think it's mostly just coming to grips with his divorce and the fact that he was a really toxic person.
Yeah.
Would you fall in love with your AI?
Oh, that's a different question than what I had.
What was your question?
So I'm just gonna quickly answer. Yes, I would fall in love with my AI, but I don't know if I'd feel comfortable having sex with it.
Because you created it, or
Well,
why?
no, it's just a matter of like, I don't feel comfortable having phone sex to begin with. Like,
Okay.
that's not something that has ever been a
Really?
part of my life.
That's where
Yeah.
you draw the line. Like, we're not gonna get into specifics because damn.
Privacy.
But that's where you draw the line.
Yeah,
Phone
I don't
sex?
like. I don't feel comfortable with phone sex or like
Sexting?
Skype sex or. I can work with it, kind of, sort of, but like I'm not really into it.
I hear you.
Like I'm more of like in person kind of sex thing. But even
I
then,
feel
it's
we're
not.
all kind of like I think we all prefer the in-person kind.
No, I'm not saying I prefer. I'm saying like I don't feel comfortable with sex as anything other than in person.
Okay.
Like I don't mind talking about it. Like, oh yeah,
Like we
sex is so much. Like yeah, like the way we're talking about it is fine. But once it gets to like, oh, and then I caress the back of your neck and gently kiss your forehead. I don't know. Like that gets
That's a
that feels
different
weird
podcast.
to me. That just feels weird to me.
Would I fall in love with my AI? Yes, I think we all would realistically. Because I mean, the OS that is, it's so fleshed out. Is it called the Ex Machina test, or am I confusing that with something else?
No, the Turing
The
test.
Turing
Yes.
test, yeah.
It's definitely passing the Turing test. Of course, they're always acknowledging the fact that she's an AI. They're always talking about her as an OS. But I mean, she's extremely human. It's very easy to fall in love with someone that through an algorithm could be designed to make you fall in love with them. Could be.
Hmm. Well, it's like this whole idea that, there's people nowadays who meet people online. And I'm not talking Tinder or Bumble or any of those apps. I mean, like, you meet someone online and you develop this relationship through text mostly or phone calls. And that's exactly what you're saying, right? When the interaction becomes naturally human, it's kind of hard for our brain to like separate what's going on and what's not going on. So, I mean, realistically, I think you're right. Maybe it would depend on like, the point of your life that you're at, emotionally, mentally.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably right.
'Cause-
Most of us would in some way or another at least be attracted to it.
Or the idea of it. I think it's very easy. I mean, you see that a lot in certain cultures where people just go into their man caves. I know Japan has a big issue about the fact that people are just online constantly, and we don't see as much interaction with people. So, yeah, people marry goats. They always have been. But in today's day and age, yes, people do actually marry goats. It's a thing. Check it out.
Oh, it's disturbing.
But I don't think we're too far
Cool.
away from, marrying your body pillow if you really like it that much. Disgustingly enough.
Which
But
I think
it's only human.
I think it leads very nicely into, the fact that this movie is trying to say we're lonely as humans, and no matter the technology that we can have. Because what I like about this movie in terms of the sci-fi aspect of this movie is that there are all the blue tones from technology are taken away. So all the screen reflections, all of the stuff that has to do with technology, it has an orange warm tint to it. Because Spike wanted it to
Right?
be
I didn't think of that either.
He and the production designer, who I'm gonna name because I feel like we don't do that enough with people who are not like directors or whatever.
Great
So
production
the production designer is KK Barrett, and so him, Hoyte, who's a DP, and Spike Jonze all work together to make the world itself warm. because that's the idea, that's the hypothesis that we'll have. Like technology brings us together because we can contact people in China, because we can, maintain this sense of like we're always connected to each other because you can see me posting about my food at 3 a.m. But the point of the movie is that is not human connection. That is not a satisfying, lasting connection. And that's why everyone is always alone on screen. Like they're all walking on their own.
Yeah, and I mean, heck, it's commonly a thing to have someone else write your love letters to someone.
Yeah, so like my brother was like, do you think that would be a thing, like this and that? And I brought up the exact example that Alexis did. I was like, dude, there's people who are so busy with their job that are like, hey, assistant X, like go buy my kid's birthday present.
Yeah.
And then they give the kid that birthday present and it's like, oh, how did you know that I want this? And you're stuck in that situation where it's like this dad has no idea, or like when Samantha asks Theodore, like, oh, why do you talk about the crooked little tooth that this woman has? And he's like, oh, because I've written this letter for 8 years. I've written their letters for 8 years, and I just saw it on a picture, and I decided to write about it. He actively shaped their relationship because after that, the husband, whether he had thought of it or not before, now he is attracted to the crooked little tooth.
And
because Theodore wrote about it.
Yeah,
exactly.
When the credits rolled up, I was surprised and delighted to see that it was Arcade Fire. Is it the actual band Arcade Fire?
It is. It's mostly the frontman.
Okay.
And another Canadian dude, but the music is performed. All the music is performed by Arcade Fire.
Because
yes,
apparently, sadly enough, Spotify doesn't, or at least in Europe, or at least in Scandinavia, it doesn't have the album.
It's not available anywhere.
Oh, that sucks.
So, and it's such a thing because everyone wants one. Because he got nominated for the Oscar for best
original
song, and also for best music, whatever that is.
Score?
I'm blanking so hard, but realistically, everyone was like, this is something that I would want. Like out of music scores, this is something that I would want. And it was never released, and there's no plans to release it. Wow. And the only thing that has ever come out is that the main guy from the band Arcade Fire was doing a Reddit AMA, and he was like, we might release a vinyl at some point, but that was 5 years ago. So, I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's sad.
Yeah.
Well, the
music is awesome.
Yeah, I always find it interesting. Like, what's the movie with the Tron? I like how Daft Punk did Tron, for example. It's cool. It's really cool when pop artists or even artists that are from the music industry collab essentially with filmmakers.
I think it's the best thing ever.
You kind of need to find a band like Arcade Fire that is sort of cinematic or have the capability to be, because it's a different form.
Yeah, but even with that, like Arcade Fire is very poppy, very like upbeat and stuff, and this is so delicate. Yeah. This stuff is so precise and so dreamy and harmonic. When I saw that it was Arcade Fire, I was like, that is insane. That blows my mind. Fucking,
I didn't think it was all
so
of it.
Creative.
Maybe
I love it.
A soundtrack or two.
No, there's like, I think they did 8 songs, and then the actual like the Moon song.
Yeah.
Oh, the Moon song. Personally, love that song. I love it with a passion.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
Where was it? Oh, when we were at the cabin. That was the first time I played that song, because like I didn't know that it existed, because I didn't know the movie. And since then, and I think it was Eunice that was singing it. And ever since then, it's been like just my favorite song. Like, it just soothes my soul. It's the chamomile tea for my soul.
Do you listen to the Phoenix and It's the Johansson version or the Arcade Fire version?
The Phoenix and Johansson.
Yeah, that's the one I listened to too.
I kind of like the version because as the credits roll up, they have the Arcade Fire version. I kind of like that one more.
Actually, I think the girl who they got to sing for that is she's the singer from that what's the fucking
That
called?
one
I think the band is called Yeah Yeah Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Yeah
yeah,
Yeah
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah 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 Yeah. It's her.
They're cool.
Who? I feel like I just witnessed an inside joke.
So one quick thing that I would like to run by you guys is
Denied.
the fact that throughout the film, again, it's a beautiful film, amazing, but you get these like consistently, there are cutaways of just seemingly random things. I try to kind of analyze it and try to break down what the cutaways were of, but sometimes it's just crowds. Sometimes at the beach, there are very nasty close-ups of human. I mean, I guess that one makes a lot of sense considering the context and they're talking about human bodies. But you know what I'm talking about. Throughout the film, there are always cutaways. They're very, a very shallow depths of field. But I never saw the purpose of them. So to me, I'm not too keen.
They're having a conversation, right?
Uh-huh.
When you have a conversation on film, you cut from one person to the other.
Oh.
There's no other person. The only other thing to cut away to is what he's making eye contact with.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
So and
Also-
it comes back to what you said about us always seeing things from his perspective and us always being in his headspace.
Shit.
That helps you put into perspective what he's going through.
Also, in some, I remember there was like one or two cutaways. I don't remember more than that, where it's actually adding context to the conversation in a sense. Like it doesn't. You don't have the beginning of the conversation, so it just finds a way to add context to what
Okay.
has been said so far with just that still image,
Mm.
which is done so beautifully that you don't even notice that that's what it's doing. But like you feel like you've been part of the conversation since before it started,
Nice.
even though you weren't there for that.
Whoa.
Just because of that one, I don't remember where exactly it was. It was like one moment that I had in my mind very vivid.
I guess I'll just have to rewatch it and look at that specifically because I didn't catch on to it until I guess it was too late. But I like that kind of like editing. It is very apparent, but if it's what your guys are saying that it is in fact adding to it, I'm all aboard. That sounds amazing.
I think the editing is great.
Yeah.
Because there's so many montages.
Uh-huh.
Like all the flashbacks are technically montages, and then most of their happy aspect of the relationship between Samantha and Theodore is also montage, and I think they're beautiful, beautiful pieces of work.
Halfway through the movie, I guess, like the latter part, they're out of the honeymoon phase, Samantha and Theodore. However, someone, I forget if it is Catherine or if it's Amy, but some of them puts the question out there, is it a real relationship between the
Mhm.
OS and the person? To bear in mind that this takes place in the future and everything. And yeah, simply that. Do you guys think that it is a real relationship? Would it be considered as
personally,
one?
I feel it depends on what you define a relationship, because I'm pretty sure that all of us have had that MSN relationship when we were like 12 or something.
I'm
And-
still in love with my RuneScape girlfriend.
Exactly. It's a relationship that you had, which is no less real than the relationships you had after that. But if you define a relationship as someone you had like sexual encounters with, then that's one type of relationship. It really depends on how you define a relationship, because it's such a loose term to use and be like and exclude parts of a relationship just because it doesn't fit your own worldview.
I think it depends.
That's the boring answer.
Realistically, because we're living all of this through Theodore's eyes, it's a relationship when he decides it is. You know, when he decides to actively commit to it, you know, and you see it because he starts caring about her, he starts, you know, doing all of this stuff. And it's actually right after the scene that you said, Algot. It's after Amy asks him, like, is it real? Like, I'm not in it. I can't. And that's the thing, right? Like, when a third party gives you an opinion about your relationship,
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt, because they don't live the day to day. They don't live the ups and downs. You know, they're not in it. They don't know how each of you feel. But if we're looking at it through theater's point of view, it is probably a relationship after that, when he decides he wants it to be. Because after that, he gets comfortable in it. You know, he goes on the double date.
Yeah.
He's like, all this. Which reminds me that we haven't spoken about Chris Pratt a lot. So I'm just going to say he's amazing and he's so funny, man. He's so funny in this.
Yeah.
With that scene, I mean, before that, we see Catherine, and she's not on board at all. Like, she finds the entire falling in love with your OS, even though it's commonplace in this world, she doesn't buy into it.
Actually, it's not.
It's not?
It's not. Because even when Amy approaches it, she says it as if to mock the person who fell in love with his AI, or to mock the person who was hitting on his AI. So it's not common there. Because, like, this is a brand new thing. Like, it's existed in their world for, like, minutes. So, like, the fact that he fell in love, it's actually more like a pioneer type thing. Like, he created something. Not
that's one way
like
to see
I'm making a point here, which is why I'm over exaggerating.
Yeah.
I don't think he's actually a pioneer for falling in love with his AI.
Well, what I guess I'm saying is that you have Catherine on one side of it that's completely against it, I think it's fair to say, and then you have Chris Pratt and his girlfriend that don't really question it. It's like he blurs out that the fact that his partner is an OS, and they don't really flinch at the fact that it's an OS. To them, it's not that big like, of a deal.
Yeah.
It kind of, weirdly enough, I think there might be some correlation to, I don't know what they're trying to say necessarily, but there's this podcast, Cox and Crender. They were old guys, YouTube veterans and stuff, but it's a great podcast. In one part of it, they make fun of how the older generation above us find it strange how people are LGBTQ and maybe even to some extent interracial relationship. They're like old people and they're like, I don't really understand why guys have to go around kissing guys. I find it weird. And they're making fun about us being like, in a few generations, the old guys that are being like, I don't know. I find it weird that my granddaughter is dating this robot. I don't like it. You know.
I mean, that's
an interesting take.
Yeah.
Realistically, we are evolving as people, and we're gonna be that old generation finding it weird.
So it could be
that.
So it could be that Catherine. Right. Hold on. So it could be that Catherine is being the equivalent of racist or homophobic, even though she's of the same age. Like, I'm pretty sure we've all had people in our lives that at one point or another, you're like, why the hell are you allowed to have thoughts and speak out loud? Like, why?
I don't think that's the point they're trying to make, but you could make that correlation.
I'm just
100%.
No,
but yeah, it could be that she's
totally
that equivalent in that sense.
So to answer my own question, I think it is a relationship. I don't think it's a healthy relationship. It would definitely be very antisocial of you to have that sort of partner. Granted, they are having a very successful double date with Chris Pratt. I don't know.
And also, that's kind of like a double standard. Like, everyone who is in a newly, developing relationships is antisocial. Okay, it's those 2 months, like, average kind of thing when your friend like suddenly disappears from your life, and it's like, oh, they're probably doing the nasty right now, tomorrow, yesterday. Like, it's a thing, but I see what you're saying about it, and I feel like we could keep going and going and going, mostly because this movie is beautiful and amazing. But I think we should wrap it up. And I would like to say that Algat has a new point of view based on our conversation here. So
Here's the thing, right?
We'll
I definitely didn't look into it, read into the film as much as I've had during this conversation. I've realized a lot of things that might not have been apparent while watching it. I was kind of tired while watching it, but I think it's a good sign, the fact that halfway through the movie, I was kind of like dozing off, but then it became very interesting and I stayed awake for the rest of the film. That's a good sign.
Cool. That's really cool.
For next time you watch it, or for anyone else who's stuck around that hasn't seen the movie already, my recommendation would be to get a nice glass of like very sweet rosé wine. Cuddle yourself with like 3 or 4 blankets, and then watch the movie. Well, like, instead of find a way to make yourself feel as if you're loved or like cared for in that moment, and then watch the movie. Whatever that translates for you. It might be just going into the bathtub and having the laptop on the side. It might be like getting under the covers and just watching it. Whatever that means to you, just do it that way, because I feel like if you don't feel loved in the moment, you're not gonna truly enjoy the movie the way it's meant to be enjoyed.
Because I was gonna say, like, I'm not sure if this is a good movie to watch after a breakup or not.
Oh no, I don't
know,
so.
Man.
Well, it touches on
it's up and down.
Getting over
but
it.
Here's the thing: he does this movie 10 years after the divorce. Like, he had 10 years to get to the point of being okay with what happened to make this movie. So you can't go in like. At that point, he also loves himself again. He's okay with himself again. And that's when he makes the movie. So I feel like you should be, at least physically, if not mentally, in the same mind space as that, so that you can truly enjoy the movie the way he intended it to be enjoyed.
Yeah,
I feel
that's fair.
that's what I get from it. I don't know if that's accurate, and I'm sure Spike Jonze will listen to this and give us some feedback on that thought, but
he'll tweet us.
Originally, I was going to give the film 2.5 stars. I'm going to increase that.
Wow.
Of course, it's a beautiful film. I love the way it's shot, and the acting is phenomenal. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't in the right place in my life to appreciate it to the extent that you guys might have. But I am going to bump up the rating for sure. For sure. I'm going to give it a 3-star. And I can definitely expect it to increase the more I see it, the more I rewatch it.
I can live with a 3.
3 out of 5.
I can live with you giving it a 3. I feel if you give it a 3, you're at least giving it the chance to go higher. Because I feel if you put it like a 2.5, it's like you wouldn't even really want to rewatch it. Yeah. So I can live with you giving it a 3. Alexis, do you want to go next?
Sure, for me it's a 5. Like, not even thinking about just 5. If I could give it more, I would give it more. But like, with a limit of 5, I would give it a 5.
Wow.
I agree. For me, I've seen this movie way too many times, and I agree with what you're saying, Alexis. For me, this movie is more enjoyed, or maybe more easily enjoyed if you, I don't know. For me, it's like a warm hug. Watching this movie is like a warm hug. So for me, it's a 5 out of 5 too.
To me, it's very bittersweet. I guess I didn't truly appreciate, or I guess I didn't relate to it to that extent. And I don't know what that tells us about you guys, but
or about you, Algot.
Oh,
maybe we should open any of those doors.
Personally, I've been through a variation of this, so like that's why the first time I watched it, the reason I started weeping like a little child that just fell on the floor and is crying for his mom. The reason that happened is because in that moment I was like, holy crap, this is the last 5 years of my life. This is what I've been going through, and now I can finally understand why it is that I've been going through it, and I can try to adjust my own personality and who I am to cause myself that shock rather than wait for it to happen naturally, so I can start fixing myself in a sense.
And that's the beauty of movies.
Yeah. So personally, that's why I related to it so much. Like, it just, yeah.
I'm just cheesy and romantic. That's why I liked it the first time, because I like romance movies. I'm a sucker for it.
Am I wrong about thinking not thinking this as a romance film necessarily.
Well, a lot of people call it a romance movie because it's about a relationship. The first time, maybe even the first couple of times that I watched it, I was on the same boat with you.
Okay.
Like, it's a bittersweet movie. Why didn't they up together? Like, all of these things. Maybe, give it some time to simmer like a good wine.
Mhm.
That's
True.
actually a
think
very
it's a
common misconception. You're not supposed to let it sit.
I know, whore, but that's the expression. Okay, don't come into our movie podcast and try to tell us about your cooking shit. Okay, that's a different podcast.
Also, I just want to make a tiny little note on that one. If you guys ever do an episode on chef or other cooking movies, please include me.
Dude, Agat doesn't like Chef.
What?
I know.
Wait, hold on.
That's
The
what I
show or
said.
the movie?
The
I
show.
love the show.
Okay,
He
no, I
likes
can
the
understand.
show.
I can understand why you don't like the movie. Yes,
Whatever.
It's-
The movie's amazing.
it's actually more of a it's way too focused on the cooking, not enough focused on the plot line, and at the same time, it works the other way around. It's too focused on the plot line and not enough on the cooking. Like, there is no. It's actually not a good movie. Like, I wouldn't rate it as a good movie from from a filmmaker's point of view. I would not say it's a good movie.
Yes.
From a cook's point of view, it's a
Mhm.
fucking amazing movie.
100%.
I love the movie.
Like,
I don't cook.
I think Jon Favreau is overrated as an actor.
As an actor,
Anywho's.
no one even. I mean,
okay, we're getting into the other episode that I want to be involved with when you
Whatever.
do it. Okay.
alrighty. So with that, this cup of coffee's over. And this conversation's over. Thank you so much for joining us, Alexis. We hope you had
Thank
fun.
you for having me.
It's been a
I
pleasure.
Thank you.
Agat, you can outro us now.
Right. Let's make sure that you listening, yes, I'm talking to you. Click that subscribe button, click that follow button, whatever you have in front of you, and you will be notified when we release another lovely episode talking about movies and drinking coffee. Also, of course, follow us on Letterboxd. Me and Mauer on Letterboxd. Alexis, do you want to give a shameful shout out to yourself, your own social, whatever tickles you funny?
No, I'm good.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, though.
Wow. No shame. I do want to say, I didn't used to understand it before, but now I get it. You guys, the listeners, giving this a 5-star or giving it a thumbs up really helps us out. It actually has to do with algorithms and popularity and all the stuff that includes us being attention-seeking horse. So, if you're already subscribed and if you enjoyed this episode, give it a 5-star, give it a thumbs up. That's really nice of you guys. It really helps us out.
Leave a comment of what movie we should review next.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, sure. You guys can choose.
Sure, why not? I don't know.
Maybe we'll listen. Maybe we won't. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty. Bye.
Adios.